Hello and welcome to part 2. Thompson and 8-Ball have landed a big hit with their OH-6 mod. The 3D model and textures are impressive, but to make the whole thing flying in DCS you need a good flight model. It makes sense not to build it from scratch, but even editing an existing flight model that is already quite extensive is hard work and above all takes time. A flight model like this can be compared to a professional mixing console. There are lots of buttons and controls for tons of variables, all of which need to be considered as well as possible. It will still take some time until they have all found their correct settings, but that doesn't mean that it's already a lot of fun to fly the thing. To make matters worse, everything can be super accurate in theory and purely mathematically, and then feel absolutely wrong in practice. Therefore, in this video we explicitly do not deal with the question of how good or how bad, how accurate or how unrealistic the flight model is, but concentrate exclusively on the current main problem. This makes it difficult to fly the machine at the moment. However, with the knowledge of why this is the case and with a simple trick, it is a lot easier. Okay, I would like to say it with the words of the King, Elvis Presley. A little bit less conversation and a little bit more action, so we go direct to the main problem and why it is so difficult to control the aircraft at the moment. So it's the lack of torque adjustments. At the moment we have pretty much the controls centered, pedal is pretty much centered, the aircraft is on the ground, but the aircraft is already running in flight idle, so there is already a lot of torque on the system, and there should be a tendency to turn the nose clockwise because of the torque already existing, but the friction on the ground keeps the aircraft stable, because the weight of the aircraft and the friction to the ground refuses against the torque pushing the aircraft clockwise. To counteract the already existing torque, I push a little bit left pedal. It's pretty much similar to the UH-1. On the ground with flight idle we may push a little bit, about 20% left pedal, to counteract the already existing torque. But what's happened here is, if I do it fast, the aircraft is moving to the left. So maybe I'm a little bit too much on the torque, but it should not move to the left because I only counteract the already existing torque to the right, and it should not react to my pedals to the left. It should only react if I overdo and push too much left pedal, then it should move, but it already moves with a slight pedal push. So there is actually no weight on the ground, or not that much weight on the ground for the aircraft. So that's the first point. So we see the basic problem here is already on the ground is torque. A second thing is, if I close the throttle slowly, torque is rising and then comes back, and you see the strange reaction of the torque needle. I do a slightly change on the throttle, and now I increase throttle and torque goes back to 0, which is totally wrong. If I close the throttle, which reduces torque, and the stress on the main rotor gearbox, torque is rising, which is the total opposite. And the main problem is the speed the needle is reacting and the aircraft is reacting towards the torque, towards any changes in power settings. So again, I go back to flight idle, and then we try to hover the aircraft and find the hover point. So, okay, I'm on flight idle, eyes outside, slowly raising collective. Actually, my controls are centered at the moment. Now the nose is moving a little bit to the right. The aircraft is drifting to the right, so I counteract with a little bit of left cyclic, a little bit of forward. Oh, it's pretty hard to hover at the moment because I'm just start flying today with the aircraft, so I need to get a little bit more used to it. So now I have a hover point which is pretty much similar to the UH-1. It's a little bit aft and a little bit to the left. So I can change that with the trim. So I trim the aircraft a little bit aft and a little bit to the left to find the hover point. Doesn't look nice. And you already see the problems I have, because the slightest change in collective induces a big change in torque, and according to that, the aircraft tries hard to swing to the left or to the right, whatever, increasing power or decreasing power, so the reaction on torque and the aircraft nose are pretty hard. So that's a big problem at the moment. Okay, so now we are in a pretty smooth hover. Let's try to do some hover taxi slowly towards the taxiway. And if you watch the torque meter, the slightest change in collective leads to a sudden and big change in torque settings. So that will also be the solution for a pretty much stable and smooth flight, and we come to that after a normal flight. So I try to fly the aircraft like I do normally, so I accelerate, raise collective a little bit, try to climb out. And the first thing is, if I do everything nice and smooth and slowly, it is pretty well to fly, even with the problem in the torque settings. So let's do a little bit harder maneuvers. So we need to change our collective and power settings, and you will see the reaction of the torque needle. I raise collective, torque is first going down and then comes pretty hard back, and I have problems to keep the nose in the right direction, in the direction of flight. If I do hard maneuvers like I like, of the kind I really like in the OH-6 or the US-500, which are when on scouting missions between trees, do hard maneuvers, it's the torque and the reaction on the pedals, that makes it hard to control the aircraft. So we are a little bit above sea level, and we already got low RPM because there was a lot of collective needed to react on the changes here. Okay, let's try again to fly a little bit of cover, a little bit of more realistic low-level ground maneuvers. Low-level flight. Which is the most dangerous but the most funny part, flying a helicopter. Low level, between the trees, and I still fly like I'm used to. I change collective to keep altitude while circling between the trees, which is already pretty well. I'm not quite sure if it's intention or if it's just a coincidence. Is in the US-500 or the OH-6, if you fly steep turns, you need a lot of aft cycling to keep the aircraft nose up. That's pretty realistic. So when I fly hard turns, reduce the collective, you hear that the turbine slowing down when I reduce power, but that's not really the way it should be. So the aircraft, the turbine engine RPM should be stable, controlled by the governor all the time. There should be no big changes. Of course, there should not be. You should not be able to hear some big changes from the turbine RPM. So again, try to take off. You see when I accelerate, my nose is swinging left and right. And if you watch again the torque meter, you see the big changes on the needle by the slightest input on the collective. So again, let's fly low level and a hard maneuver to the right this time. Woo! So it needs some practice to control the aircraft, but it does not look really controlled. So I'm lucky not to crash right now. So again, turn to the right, lower collectives to slow down the aircraft, and you hear the changes in engine RPM, and you see the big changes in torque. Yeah, which is totally overdue and causes the main problem flying the aircraft. So the solution will be, if you take the aircraft into flight, so you are above the ground and you have your cruising speed between 60 and 80 knots, leave the collective alone, don't touch the collective anymore, and just stay focused on flying. So I do not any changes now at the collective. So if you do not change the collective, you see the difference in flying. The aircraft is much more stable. It's much more controllable if I do not touch the collective anymore, because without touching the collective there are not that much changes in torque. And even such hard maneuvers, which was not intended, does not lead to low RPM situations and high too much torque situations, but the torque needle is still moving very much. So actually that's the main problem. Besides the fact there is no stabilizing systems and all that kind of stuff, the aircraft is pretty light and powerful, so it reacts pretty fast to any control input of the pilot. The torque problem is the main factor if you have difficulties to fly the aircraft. So a little bit flying more between the trees, low level. I'm still not touched the collective, so I'm flying around now for at least 1 minute or two, don't touching the collective, still doing hard maneuvers, and it looks much smoother and much more controlled than actually using the collective how it should be in under normal conditions. So I do not reduce collective here and I do not change anything, so it's a little bit strange. But as I already said at the beginning, this is the main problem. If you build an aircraft for flight simulator, you have a great 3D model, you have great skins and all that kind of stuff, and then you have these flight model basic stuff where you have a lot of variables you may change to adjust to the actual aircraft. And one of the biggest things is to prevent the aircraft from overdue. So here in the it's the overdue of torque and also the overdue of reaction to the pilot inputs. As long as I do not use collective, it feels pretty normal and pretty much reacting also to some kind of weight force. But if I start using the collective, I get in trouble because of the problems created due to the change of torque in the system. And as I said, in a normal aircraft, the governor keeps the engine RPM in a steady situation, steady RPM state that already fixes most of the torque changes, and the torque changes to your control inputs during normal flight are not that much. So you should have enough time to react with the pedals, and the reactions are usually not that big. But at the moment in that aircraft the changes are pretty hard, pretty fast, and yeah, sometimes uncontrollable. So again, I go back and use the collective again as I'm used to. Let's do a quick stop first before I use the collective again. Quick stop, which is a maneuver from forward speed to slow airspeed, or okay, it's balloons like expected. Okay, so now I need to use the collective to counteract the ballooning when slowing down. Go back to the airport close to the ground, and then I use the collective now. So, and when reducing airspeed, at the same time lowering collective to prevent ballooning. So you hear the engine changing, and okay. So I've got used to the flight model now, and I do all my changes pretty smooth, and I try to do it slow, like it should be in real life. So there is no, because of the missing weight and the weight forces in a computer simulation, you do most things much too fast. Your approach is too fast, your takeoffs too fast, your landings too fast. If you watch a video, a helicopter landing on final approach, it needs a minute or two until it touches the ground. In DCS, we do it in 30 seconds. So if you try to fly a little bit more realistic and do things nice and slow and in a much more controlled manner, the aircraft does not react that much to changes in torque, because the changes will be nice and smooth, and there's more time to react to it on the pedals and even on the cyclic stick. So, okie dokie, let's land. So you see, that's the main problem actually of the flight model. If you have big difficulties to control the aircraft, simply try to take it off, accelerate, and then keep your hands from the collective, and simply try to fly without using collective, and you will see it's much more stable, much more easy to control. And if you need collective for slowing down, getting close, or for landing, you get back into trouble. So I hope they will change the flight model in the near future, and apply some changes. I know it's hard, especially if you not a pilot, and you have only when it comes to flying, you have only your theoretical knowledge, which is necessary, and of course it's not bad, but there is always a difference between theoretical thinking and practical doing. If you have questions, please let me know in the comments below. Maybe I will do another video. We will see, depending on your reaction and on your feedback. Thank you very much for joining. If you like the video, please give us a like. If you do not join the channel at the moment, so please join the channel.